being shouted at and told to calm down, being told to visit the local Buddhist temple, and being asked, well, what else do you want me to do, are just three things that my GP said to me when I was suffering from real mental health problems, and can show me, looking back, about how ill-equipped our NHS is to deal with what has become a genuine pandemic amongst middle-aged men in the UK. Now, I'm really conscious of being critical of the NHS because it's a most wonderful service and it's staffed by the most wonderful people, and my family and probably your family can be grateful to them for so many things in our life. But sadly, when it comes to mental health, both the funding, the management and the delivery on a primary care level is just not acceptable. And that has to change. When I first started experiencing low-level anxiety and depression, I went to the GP, which is the right thing to do. And I would advise anybody watching this who's suffering from low-level anxiety or depression that the GP is the right place to go, because there are modern effective medications that are safe, they're very safe, and they can really help you. And their brand names are things like sertraline and citalopram and fluoxetine. And you may be on those and they may be helping you. And that's great news. Unfortunately for me and many others, it's the opposite. So I went on one of those and it made me worse after about 3 or 4 weeks, and had to go back to the GP saying, look, these panic attacks, this anxiety, these tearful episodes are actually increasing and I'm feeling worse. And they moved me on to a different one. A different GP moved me on to a different medication and said, well, this one will work. And you give it a bit of time, but oh dear, it started to get worse. There was no improvement or lifting of my mood. The anxiety was increasing, the crying was increasing, the panics were increasing, the depression was getting worse. And you'll know if you've been through this stuff that when you're going through it, you just want an end to it. If you broke your leg, you'd have it in a cast for 6 weeks and you'd know that that's when it heals. If you've got a chest infection, you take antibiotics for 2 weeks and you know the chest infection gets better. Mental health's not like that. Mental health's not like that. And I had to go back again with my wife to the third set of medication to say these first two are not working. What do we do? And it was almost quite surreal looking back at it, because on that third visit, the doctor said, well, I want you to give the current one a bit longer. I was in a right old mess. And in the meantime, why don't you go and visit the local Buddhist temple and learn how to meditate? That was the GP advice to someone going through dark depression, deep anxiety. And although they were well-meaning, it just wasn't adequate, and it's not okay. And I went through 3 different medications, and I went back a 4th time. I was worse. I was in a real bad place. I was panicking about how much panic I was experiencing. And the GP said to me, well, what else do you want me to do? What else do you want me to do? And I think what it shows is how medicalised our world is. And that's great on so many levels, isn't it? Because it helps our lives. But on mental health, just medication is not the answer. And our GPs are medicating it with tablets. And if that doesn't work, they don't know what else to do. And if they refer you to psychiatric services, that waiting list is immensely long. I was back at the GP again when I was suffering a really bad panic attack, when I couldn't come out of it. I was in a ball. I was almost psychotic. And the GP shouted at me. He said, Mr. Riley, you need to calm down. Mr. Riley, pull yourself together. Now, you'd hoped anybody with any training at all would know that if you shout at someone when they're experiencing anxiety or depression, it doesn't help. It just makes them worse. And that's really sad. I experienced, I think, probably the worst service with GPs that you could over mental health. And I'm really sorry if you're experiencing that too. It's great news that 75% of people that go to their GP with mental health issues get the right sort of support. But if you're the sort of person that's been and you're not getting that help, and you've experienced anything that I've been through, I'm totally with you. I totally get that. I really do. And what I'd say to you is please don't give up hope, because there are other answers. Things like therapy, things like lifestyle changes can make a difference. I know that information is not that widely available and it's often reliable on charities, but that's why we do some of these videos, to try and support you, because improving your mental health is about small changes. And if you just hang on to medication being the answer, then I'm afraid, my friends, it doesn't work. It's about so much more than that. We're in a much better place than we used to be. Medication is so much safer and so better and so much more acceptable than it used to be. And if it works for you, that is absolutely fabulous. But if it doesn't, I know how you're feeling. If it doesn't, I get that it's horrible. But if it doesn't, there are other answers, and you need to keep going back to your GP, and you need to keep accessing help for other services. And it is really sad, isn't it? Many of you know, last year I also had a stroke, and 100,000 people a year in the UK suffer from a stroke. The moment I'd had a stroke, the NHS service was awesome. For about 6 weeks, I got 3 visits a week from nurses and doctors and therapists and physiotherapists, and it was a brilliant service. When I had a mental health illness, which happens to millions of people, not thousands of people, millions of people, you're just left to it on your own. And it's crushing for you as an individual, and for your partner, and for your family. And it is tough. So that was the experience I had, and it wasn't good. But I want you to know that please keep looking for other answers. Please do not stop going to your GPs because my experience was bad. It is the first port of call, and I'd encourage you to do that. And if medication works for you, absolutely great. But keep fighting for what you need for your mental health, and you will get better. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. And as ever, I really do keep wishing you well.